Before we begin, if you want to discover the hidden truth about how you wield power and influence in your life, subscribe now and turn on notifications. This psychological insight could reveal why you lead, follow, or resist authority in ways you never consciously understood. There are moments when a single choice exposes the architecture of your entire relationship with power. Not because the choice is complex, but because it reveals what you believe you deserve, what you fear to claim, and how you navigate the invisible hierarchies that structure human existence. Right now, you stand before such a revelation. In front of you are 4 crowns. They are not mere symbols of status. Each one represents a fundamentally different relationship with authority, sovereignty, and the psychological burden of leadership. Before your mind begins to calculate which crown appears most valuable, pause. Breathe. Notice which crown your soul recognizes as its own. This is critical. Do not rationalize. The moment you begin to think strategically, you disconnect from the unconscious truth this test is designed to reveal. Carl Jung understood that our relationship with power is rarely what we consciously believe it to be. We tell ourselves stories about why we lead or why we follow, but beneath those narratives lie deeper archetypal patterns that shape our behavior far more than our conscious intentions. The unconscious communicates through symbols that carry emotional weight, historical resonance, and mythological depth. The crown you feel drawn to is not a reflection of your ambition. It is a mirror of your psychological relationship with authority itself, with the burden of responsibility, with the question of whether you believe you have the right to rule your own life. This test speaks directly to the part of you that either claims power or surrenders it, that either builds kingdoms or serves them. As you observe these crowns, you may feel desire, resistance, unworthiness, or recognition. Do not judge these responses. Sometimes we are drawn to the crown we wish we could wear. Sometimes we are drawn to the crown we are already wearing without realizing it. And sometimes we are drawn to the crown that represents what we most need to integrate. Once you have chosen, hold that image. Each crown represents a different form of sovereignty, a different answer to the question of how power should be held, expressed, and justified. None is inherently better or worse. They simply reveal different psychological strategies for navigating a world where hierarchies exist, where some lead and others follow, where authority must be claimed, earned, or rejected. Jung called the process of becoming fully yourself individuation, but individuation is not just about knowing yourself. It is about claiming your right to exist as yourself, to occupy space, to influence your own destiny. The crown you choose reveals where you are in that process. Now let us see which crown calls to you. The Golden Crown, the sovereign who rules by divine right. If you chose the Golden Crown, you carry within you the archetype of the sacred sovereign. This crown represents inherited authority, divine mandate, the belief that some are born to lead and that leadership is not just a role, but a destiny. Gold has symbolized divine power across every civilization because it does not tarnish or decay. People drawn to the Golden Crown possess an unshakable sense of their own legitimacy, a quiet certainty that they belong in positions of influence, not because they earned it, but because it is simply who they are. You likely have a natural sense of entitlement, and I do not mean that as an insult. True entitlement is the bone-deep knowledge that you have the right to exist, to be seen, to be heard, to take up space. You do not apologize for your presence. You do not shrink to make others comfortable. You walk into rooms as though you own them, not out of arrogance, but out of an inner conviction that you belong there. From a Jungian perspective, the Golden Crown connects to the archetype of the king or queen, the sovereign self that rules not through force, but through embodied authority. Jung believed that the sovereign archetype represents psychological wholeness, the integration of all parts of the self under a unified center. Those who resonate with the golden crown are being called to step into that wholeness, to stop fragmenting themselves to fit others' expectations. Your strength lies in your ability to lead without effort. You do not try to dominate. You simply are, and others respond to that presence. You make decisions with confidence. You set directions without needing consensus. You hold space for others while maintaining clear boundaries. This is not control. It is sovereignty. However, the golden crown carries a profound shadow. The belief in divine right can become dangerous entitlement. You may begin to believe that the rules that apply to others do not apply to you. You may become intolerant of challenge, dismissive of feedback, isolated in the loneliness of assumed superiority. When sovereignty becomes tyranny, the golden crown becomes a prison. Another danger is inherited identity. The golden crown can trap you in a role that was given to you rather than chosen by you. You may be living out someone else's vision of who you should be, wearing a crown that was placed on your head by family, culture, or expectation. The weight of inherited authority can be crushing when it does not align with who you actually are. There is also the risk of disconnection from struggle. When you believe you were born to lead, you may never develop the empathy that comes from being powerless. You may not understand what it means to fight for legitimacy because legitimacy was given to you at birth. Ask yourself, is this crown truly mine, or am I wearing it because it was expected? Do I rule because I am capable, or because I was told I should? The golden crown is asking you to examine whether the throne you occupy is the one you would choose if you had complete freedom. Sovereignty means nothing if it is not chosen consciously. Yet not all authority comes from inheritance or divine mandate. Some crowns are forged in mystery, where power accumulates in silence. To understand that form of sovereignty, we turn to the second crown, the silver crown, the mystic who rules through hidden knowledge. If the silver crown called to you, you understand that the most profound forms of power are often invisible. This crown represents esoteric knowledge, intuitive authority, the sovereignty that comes not from public recognition, but from private mastery of hidden truths. Silver is the metal of the moon, of cycles, of what is revealed only in darkness. People drawn to the silver crown possess knowledge that cannot be taught in schools, wisdom that comes from sources others do not have access to, power that operates beneath the surface of visible hierarchies. You are likely someone who influences from behind the scenes. You do not need public recognition because you know that the most effective power is the kind others do not see coming. You are the advisor, the strategist, the one who whispers truth into the ears of those who wear more visible crowns. You understand systems, patterns, human psychology. You know how to read a room, sense what is not being said, and position yourself where you can have maximum impact with minimum visibility. From a Jungian perspective, the silver crown connects to the archetype of the magician or the wise one, the figure who possesses knowledge that transcends ordinary understanding. Jung believed that this archetype represents the capacity to work with the unconscious, to access symbolic knowledge, to perceive reality at levels others cannot reach. Those who resonate with the silver crown are often highly intuitive, psychologically sophisticated, and capable of seeing through illusions that trap others. Your strength lies in your strategic intelligence. You do not need to be the loudest voice because you understand that influence is not about volume. You plant seeds of ideas and watch them grow. You shift dynamics through subtle interventions. You wield power through understanding rather than force. However, the silver crown carries a shadow. Hidden power can become manipulation. When you influence from the shadows, the line between guidance and control can blur. You may justify your methods by telling yourself that you know what is best, that others cannot handle the truth. But manipulation, even when well-intentioned, is still a violation of others' autonomy. Another danger is the burden of hidden knowledge. When you see what others cannot, When you understand systems that remain invisible to most, you carry a loneliness that is hard to explain. You may feel like you are living in a different reality. The silver crown can isolate you in your own insight. There is also the risk of never claiming visible authority. The silver crown can become an excuse to remain hidden when what you actually need is to step into the light. You may tell yourself that you prefer to work behind the scenes, but underneath may be a fear of being seen, of being challenged, of having your authority questioned in public. Ask yourself, am I wielding my knowledge with integrity, or am I using it to control outcomes that are not mine to control? The silver crown is asking you to examine whether you are hiding your light because it serves a greater purpose or because you are afraid of what would happen if you stepped fully into your power. Yet there is another form of sovereignty, one that is earned through blood, sweat, and relentless will. To understand that crown, we turn to the third. The Iron Crown, the warrior who rules through conquest. If the Iron Crown is the one you chose, you understand that power must be taken, not given. This crown represents earned authority, sovereignty forged through struggle, the leadership that comes not from birthright or secret knowledge, but from proving yourself in battle. Iron is the metal of warriors, of boundaries, of the will that bends reality through sheer force. People drawn to the Iron Crown have fought for everything they have. Nothing was handed to them. Every inch of territory they occupy was won through effort and sacrifice. You are likely someone who respects strength and distrusts anything that comes too easily. You have been tested by life, and those tests shaped you into someone who does not break under pressure. You may have come from nothing and built something. You may have faced opposition that would have destroyed weaker people. You survived, and that survival taught you that the only authority worth having is the authority you claim through your own actions. From a Jungian perspective, the Iron Crown connects to the warrior archetype and the ego's capacity to assert itself against overwhelming odds. Jung understood that the ego must be strong enough to navigate reality, to set boundaries, to say no when necessary. Those who resonate with the Iron Crown have developed that strength, often because they had no choice. You learned early that the world does not give you what you deserve. It gives you what you take. Your strength lies in your refusal to be a victim. You do not wait for permission. You do not make you assess what needs to be done, and you do it. This makes you formidable, reliable, and deeply respected by those who value action over words. However, the Iron Crown carries a brutal shadow. The mentality of conquest can consume you. When you believe that everything must be fought for, you may create battles where none exist. You may see every interaction as a competition, every relationship as a hierarchy. The warrior who never takes off their armor eventually forgets how to be anything other than a warrior. Another danger is that you may measure your worth entirely by your victories. When your identity is built on what you have conquered, losing becomes unbearable. Failure is not just disappointment, it is existential threat. You may push yourself beyond healthy limits, sacrifice relationships, destroy your well-being in pursuit of the next conquest. There is also the risk of becoming hard. The Iron Crown can turn you cold, unable to access vulnerability or tenderness. You may pride yourself on not needing anyone, on being completely self-sufficient, but that isolation is a different kind of defeat. Ask yourself, what am I still fighting that no longer needs to be fought? What battles am I creating because I do not know who I am without war? The Iron Crown is asking you to examine whether your strength has become a prison, whether the armor that protected you is now preventing you from being fully alive. And yet there is one final crown, one that rejects every assumption about what sovereignty means. To understand it, we turn to the fourth crown, the Crystal Crown, the visionary who rules through transformation. If the Crystal Crown is the one you chose, you understand that the most radical form of sovereignty is the willingness to constantly reinvent what sovereignty means. This crown represents transformation, transparency, the refusal to be defined by any single form of authority. Crystal is unique because it is both solid and translucent, structured, yet capable of refracting infinite possibilities. People drawn to the crystal crown do not fit traditional models of leadership. You rule through the courage to be endlessly yourself, to transform when transformation is needed, to hold complexity without collapsing into simplicity. You are likely someone who resists being categorized. You may lead in some contexts and follow in others. You may hold authority without needing a title. You may influence through authenticity rather than strategy. You understand that power is not a fixed thing to be grasped, but a fluid force to be channeled. From a Jungian perspective, the crystal crown connects to the process of individuation itself, the ongoing transformation toward wholeness. Jung believed that true sovereignty is not static but dynamic, requiring constant integration of new insights and experiences. Those who resonate with the crystal crown are living this process consciously. You are not trying to arrive at a final version of yourself. You are committed to endless evolution. Your strength lies in your adaptability and transparency. You do not hide who you are. You do not pretend to be more or less than you are. This radical authenticity gives you a unique form of authority. People trust you not because you have all the answers, but because you are honest about your questions. However, the crystal crown carries a shadow. The commitment to transformation can become an avoidance of commitment itself. You may change so often that you never build anything lasting. You may use your fluidity as an excuse to never plant roots, never make difficult choices, never stand for something concrete. Another danger is that your transparency can leave you vulnerable. When you refuse to hide, when you show all your facets, you give others access to your weaknesses. Not everyone will honor that openness. The crystal crown requires discernment about who deserves to see your full complexity. There is also the risk of losing your center. When you are committed to holding all perspectives, you may lose touch with what you actually believe, what you actually value, what you actually stand for. Ask yourself, am I transforming toward something, or am I using transformation to avoid staying with anything long enough to make it real? The crystal crown is asking you to recognize that true sovereignty includes the courage to commit, to choose, to say, this is who I am right now. Integration. When all four crowns rest on one head. Your choice of crown was not about destiny. It was about recognition. Each crown represents a different answer to the fundamental question of how authority is claimed, held, and expressed. But no fully realized human being wears only one crown. The purpose of this test is to reveal which form you currently embody and which forms you may be neglecting. Jung believed that wholeness requires integrating all archetypal patterns. The golden crown without the silver crown becomes blind arrogance. The silver crown without the iron crown becomes powerless knowledge. The iron crown without the crystal crown becomes brutal rigidity. The crystal crown without the golden crown becomes ungrounded possibility. If you chose the golden crown, examine whether your authority is truly yours or inherited. If you chose the golden crown, examine whether your authority is truly yours or inherited. If you chose the silver crown, step into visible authority. If you chose the iron crown, lay down your sword when there is no battle. If you chose the crystal crown, commit to something real, even knowing it will change. The crown you wear is not permanent. Sovereignty is a relationship with power that must be constantly renegotiated. As you move forward, ask yourself, which crown am I wearing right now? Which crown do I need to remove? Which crown am I afraid to claim? If this reflection revealed something true, share which crown you chose in the comments. Because sovereignty is not about the crown you wear. It is about the consciousness with which you wear it.